culture, so having global mindset and global idea. I did it in a different way as I used to do in other traditional courses. So I focus more on like products and service development. So thinking about cultures, but already having in mind your product and your service. But I would also, in this case, we cannot talk for 1 hour, just talk for 10 minutes about this. I have these 3 questions, like before, for you. How many cultures did you meet in the past few weeks? Which culture or cultures do you belong to? And third one, are you open to compromise? And again, you can start from the last one. You can answer to all the 3.
Discussed openly?
Yes, yes, we discussed. We don't have time to group. Yeah, I can go later.
Yeah, I talked too much. Sorry. Well, the open and compromise, I think that when you work interculturally, you always have to adapt if you want to have good communication. Because then you might come off as too either timid or too loud or whatnot. And so it's always good to adapt to maybe sense the room and adapt to the, even like clothes wise, you can be dressed the same in different countries. The way you speak, the words you use, and the manners, you know. So I think studying before and see what's the norms, what's to be respectful, is there any like important norms or rituals, let's say, that's super important. So I think compromise is not an option really sometimes when you're in an intercultural or a community or collaboration environment.
Thank you.
I think international people, they are becoming by nature more flexible. They are already flexible.
So I think who are the international people?
Like us, for example, that we are in different countries and different languages and through across, you know, cultures and countries. So we're already more flexible than local people because we expand our perspectives, our experience, and this makes us more flexible, more understanding as well. If I have to say which cultures I belong to, well, it's minimum 2. Maybe even more, because when you travel, you observe certain things as well. And for example, I love, I don't know, like recently I have arrived from Dubai, right? I like some notes of that culture as well. Maybe the music, maybe the way, I don't know, maybe even some dresses, maybe, I don't know, things that here and there. And I would like part of it to be part of me.
Yeah.
How many cultures did I meet in the past few weeks? A lot, I think, just here alone. I think, I don't know, at least 10 different, I guess. So yeah, a lot. And I like that, and I hope to continue mixing many other countries, getting to know. I still don't know a lot of cultures, and I would love to explore.
Online, let me hear at least one online.
I can share. The second question, which cultures do you belong to? For me, it's an important question because usually when they ask me where I'm from, I say I am European because I lived in different European countries and I feel I do not I don't feel Italian. I don't know if I feel Italian, maybe a part of me, yes, but it's very complex. Like all the experience that we have done, like you, everyone there, traveling around and working in different contexts, they form, they create the new version of you, right? So it's very difficult for me, and I know many of us, to fit in a specific box, right? So it's sometimes hard to explain this to people who cannot relate, right? So those who are still in the same country or spend their whole life in the same country, that's where it's difficult. But I do believe it's an opportunity for both of us to learn, for them to open up a little bit, and for me to see something that I forgot or something that I didn't notice about that specific context. So I think it's like a lifelong experience. This I mean, every time we move, we learn, and every person we meet, we can learn from them. So it's challenging, but I feel like it's very beautiful. It opens our minds more and more and more.
Thank you. So one last online, maybe someone who didn't speak before. I don't know if you can pick someone who hasn't spoken yet.
I don't know.
I can try.
Yeah.
Nelly? Okay, yes,
Yeah,
Nelly.
Nelly or Flavia.
Oh, yes, you are in the car. Thank you, Nelly. Go.
Yes, sorry about that. But I've met recently many countries in the past weeks, especially studying in the university and especially in this program. And it's amazing because everyone is different. Everyone is bringing their flavor and bringing their part with the culture. And to the second question, I think I don't identify myself as one culture, but as a citizen of the world. It's like most of my life, I was thinking about this because I really love each culture. I really like to travel, and I like to combine every part where I travel to. And it's more about compromising. Yes, it is. I'm open to compromise, especially when you start to learn something new about the culture that we have never interacted with. And it's so interesting because it's so different, or it's something like super close to you, and you're just like, wow, that's so eye-opening, so fresh, and so amazing. So it's very, yes, I agree that all the culturally diverse teams are more flexible. That's already a known fact, and that's why it makes so amazing. Like to be together, be flexible, learn all the time, learn about each other, and to learn how to communicate to each other. So thank you.
Yeah. Good.
I don't know, Flavia.
Something.
Yes, this is Flavia.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think I basically left Italy almost 10 years ago, and even before that I lived abroad. So I think all these experiences had two effects on me. One is that they exposed me to a lot of people from all around the world, and there is a lot of richness in that because you can really see different perspectives and different attitudes towards the same problems, right? And then when it comes to the sense of belonging, I think in some ways it made me really Italian. Like I found out those parts of me that are very Italian or like generally Italians, but then I also learned and adopted other things from other cultures that in a sense I feel they're more me or reflect my values more.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I really love meeting people from different countries and to share experience. And I also find out that although we are from different cultures, we share the same fears, same feelings, same or similar. So it's amazing how you can say, I'm from different culture, but there's still something which is really, really connecting you. I mean, like a human being.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Thank you. So now let's see if you're really open to compromise. So let me tell me if it's yes or no to this picture that I'm going to show you. Hawaiian pizza is yes or no? Is okay? Is yes? Is yes? What online is yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down. No?
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Yes, yes. It's also yes for me, but I saw the Italian was like the Italian or Flavia or Karin were.
I mean, I personally wouldn't eat it, but if someone else wants to have it, I mean, they're free to do so.
Good. Let's try another one. Well, Karin.
Yeah, no, I tried. It's not so bad. Sorry.
I think for Italians, it's also tea or cappuccino before the
Oh yeah, and
That's even worse.
for everything after 11 a.m. And the funny story is, I love Hawaiian pizza, probably from my time in Brazil or in the US. But here in Malta, I had one waiter, Italian waiter in a restaurant. I ordered Hawaiian pizza, and he was like, "No, you're Italian. Now you can change your order." And I had to change my order. He didn't bring my Hawaiian pizza.
No, come on.
Put
Yeah,
a review on Google.
No.
I joke about it, but it's like, so are we open to compromise or no? It's not a joke. This is also, the next one is also for Italians, but not.
Sorry, I have a funny story about the pizza because I tried also Hawaiian pizza. I was in Ireland and it was my first like study abroad program. And we got it from our host mom. So, you know, I had no choice. And I thought it was potatoes. So I started eating it because I saw this and I was like, oh, they put potatoes on pizza. Let's try. And I was like, wait, tastes very weird for potatoes. So I really approached it with an open mind and I didn't like it.
They have pizza with potato.
Which is
actually good.
It's really. Let's try another one.
Italian trip in Brazil. The topping there.
Ready to eat pasta is a yes or no. Ready to eat in 60 seconds. Come on.
As long as
Yes.
it's not plastic.
There are many Italians that would say no, and actually many restaurants, Italian restaurants that failed in some countries because one, they don't want to adapt, but also they are not able to position themselves at that luxury level where you do Italians like in Italy and stuff. So this is in China, there is a high number of Italian restaurants that failed because Chinese also, they love to put ketchup on a pizza instead of tomato. And this is like, it's really like for some Italians, pizza makers, they cannot make it. But then it means that your pizza place would fail because you're not able to adapt. And what about this one? Electronic bidet toilet. So yes or no? Yes.
These I don't know. It's a new thing to me.
Yes, always and
Yes.
forever.
Plays music. Stuff.
Yeah, there are so,
I mean, depends how long time you spend.
so many
Even
things you
if it's
can
1
do.
minute, you're gonna enjoy it for life.
But for some people, it's also extremely awkward.
Yeah, for the Japanese.
Yeah, exactly. It's mainly in Japan. But it's also something that for some people can be extremely awkward. It's like you can play music, you can talk, and then you wash yourself. And for some people, it's so awkward.
You don't do what?
What do you need? So, but then there is also, for example, for this, and also for there is also a reflection about like the energy that's consumed and water that's consumed. So various elements.
Does it measure the pulse as well?
The pulse does many things. And what about a service? So this is maybe that is a legend, but it's something that you find a lot in intercultural studies. So if you're seeing this and you already know the answer, don't say anything. But if you've seen for the first time, answer to the question, what mistake did McDonald's make when they went to Russia? They opened the first restaurant in St. Petersburg. They wanted the staff to smile in the McDonald's way to customers. They started selling Haring's burgers. What was the mistake? A, B, or C? B.
They wanted.
Why B?
Because Slavic
Yes.
nations don't smile.
It's
gonna be fake.
It's gonna be fake.
Also, if you smile in our cultures, it means that you're stupid.
In our culture means you're stupid. Hannah?
Nations is sometimes hard to smile. It's like no, different. We have sometimes different faces, or
Or it's for like
our previous
family.
generation.
But I have to say also that the McDonald's in Russia, it was obviously my first experience. And it was actually a lot more tastier than when I tried it somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
I don't know why, maybe it's
That's
the
different.
local produce, maybe yeah, it was, but it was like delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
I stopped using McDonald's.
The other place. Good. So, but see how it came out. So she said it's fake and it's family. And Nelly, what did you say? In our culture is?
I'm from Russia, and in our culture, it means that if you smile, that you're stupid.
Yeah.
And you're not very smart person.
You smile for no
Yes.
reason or too long. It's like, are you okay?
Yeah. So, but for some
I think
people,
it's
that's
also part
easy.
of the Soviet. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's a distrust. It's a Soviet culture where everybody was your enemy. It's a very political, I would call it, not smiling and treating everybody like potential enemy. But it's older generation, I guess. Our generation is changing it, breaking the cycles, hopefully.
This was also.
There's Flavia first. Flavia?
This story reminded me of, I don't know, did anyone go to, was it Hollister? Like, I don't know, 15 years ago, there's this clothing stores from the US, and they had this sort of models at the entrance. Whenever you enter, they would be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" But in English. And we used to walk by the store in Milan, and it was such a weird experience to have
Abercrombie
these
and Fitch.
Abercrombie, yes,
Abercrombie
yeah.
and Fitch.
And they were like, "Hey guys."
Abercrombie, the shop, they were used to selling clothes, and they have all kind of models instead of employees. And they were, some of them, they were at the entrance, like showing their body with their jeans. And they were, even if they were like in Italy or other countries, they will address you in English, like, "Hey, what's up?" Then like Abercrombie had many issues related to diversity and inclusion, but then it was really like McDonald's was this American way, and the idea was, this is our culture, and we do not adjust. But this is also a choice. Like, you can also decide that you will not adjust to the local market because you actually want to bring your American way, your Abercrombie way. But for some locals, it feels awkward, and so you feel intimidated, like Flavia was saying. So maybe I don't go in because maybe like my English is not so fluid. What did they talk to me in English, or I don't know, I don't feel that I'm like them as a model. So there can be many things going on in your mind. But that was their strategy, actually. And the clothes were not actually good in terms of like texture and stuff, and were very simple, like a white t-shirt and jeans. But they made a lot about like the store itself, how it was built, and the employees.
Abercrombie and Fitch is the same group as Hollister.
Yeah. Flavia, sorry, do you want to?
Now they're on a lawsuit because they were doing.
No,
they were using the models as like texting.
Model. They were using all the models.
Yeah, they were it's like sexual harassment.
Yes, and sexual
charges.
Do you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted super quickly, but like I just how Walmart didn't work in Germany because they wanted people to just have their first name, and in Germany you have to call them Mr. or Mrs. Even if you go to the supermarket, everybody has their last name only. And they wanted them to also do like in the US, before every shift, to like get together and like sing the song of Walmart. And at the end, like, woo! And they were like, this is not gonna happen here. So Walmart never opened in Germany.
So no wonder it's not happening in Russia then.
Yeah, but see, this is really what we said before. So compromise or not compromise. And again, I know you all think that you are willing to compromise, but then when the moment comes, maybe you are also more rigid on something that you think you are. Or also, again, you need a lot of awareness to understand that actually I'm doing this because of my culture or cultures. And with culture, we mean the way we've been educated. So it doesn't matter where your education happened, but for sure you are shaped by the education system, by your family value, by your peers, by your experiences, but also about what Parvina was saying, like history is actually something that also shapes. So in the new generation are different in the ex-Soviet countries, but still there is an heritage, and it's still recent because it was like 30 years ago almost, and 30 years ago is quite recent. So it takes some time to change the mentality. Of course, now people are traveling more, and so maybe it's not so uncomfortable in someone smiling at you, but still it's something is not part of your culture, the way you've been educated. It's like it's disrespectful, it thinks you're crazy. What, you are part of my family that you're smiling? I think you're not serious. There are probably many things that are going on in your mind. On the other side, for the Americans, they have eye contact with everyone and they smile to everyone. And I did a relocation here to a couple of, and they were actually African Americans relocating to Malta. And so they were telling me, but we are like looking everyone in the eyes and people don't look at us, and we smile and they don't smile. And this is because they're racist, they told me. And I was like, not really, but it's also in the Mediterranean, actually, if you have eye contact too much, it's kind of you're flirting. So this can also be something that they don't want from you. So there are many things that you actually have to think about. But of course, if you're coming from a place where eye contact is normal, smiling to everyone is normal, stop people and say, oh, I like your foods, I like your head, and then it's not happening, maybe you start blaming the other country more than reflecting on who are you and why you're doing certain things. So especially now thinking also about your business, it's really a question that you have to ask to yourself, how much you want to compromise, how much you can compromise. With the fashion, how much you can adapt or want to adapt, or how much also you want to be more true to your culture or identity, but so also you have to position yourself in a way that you don't need to adapt or compromise. Or also the book, like you want to do a certain kind of book, fine, but also how and where you position yourself. So some tools, and again, I will go fast here, but then some tool we can put some link. I think something that's extremely useful is like cultural intelligence is a framework. So many of you know about emotional intelligence. What we say in the cultural space is also that you also need something else, because as she was saying before, like emotions are the same, but actually we don't show emotions in the same way. We are not allowed also to show or use our emotions in the same way because of our education. And so the cultural intelligence is also be able to read the cultural differences, be aware of the cultural differences. First of all, be aware of yourself and your culture and what you bring to any intercultural interaction. And I like the framework because it has 4 components. The first is the drive, that's the motivation. And the idea is also that you can develop skills in all the different 4 aspects. So you can develop also skills in motivating yourself. I think I work a lot in the CQ drive with my father for having him tried the pizza kebab. So I was having him. CQ knowledge is knowledging about a place, a country, a culture, a specific group in a specific country. And so knowing a lot about also like the cultural norms or something that you can or should do or not doing. The strategy also in this case, how I can, in my business idea, adjust it to the global market or this specific market or this specific group in my country. And then the actions are really the real action that you're going to take. And so I shake my hands with everyone in this country, or I don't shake the hands with women. I'm just waiting for them to do the first move. So if they shake hands with me, it's like they're all comfortable in shaking hands with a woman. If they're not, I just bow. So it's more about the actions. And then the other framework, again, because authenticity is key, this was developed by Andy Molisky. Most of these are from the US, but then now luckily there are studies all over the world. It's called global dexterity, and it's a concept that I like because it's also the idea that intercultural communication, intercultural relationships force you to step out of your comfort zone, but also stay in what is called the zone of appropriateness. So I can take a step forward, but I cannot take a step too big and too far away from my comfort zone, because otherwise I'm not authentic to myself. I will never be Maltese. So it doesn't make sense for me to pretend to be Maltese, or even if I'm so proficient I'm not in the Maltese language, even if I have a Maltese partner, I will never be Maltese. And so I also have to stay in my zone of appropriateness and or also exactly, or also to be authentic to myself and also not pretend or mocking other people. But still I can get out of my comfort zone and maybe like adjust the way I'm talking, adjust the way maybe I'm someone who would really like to touch, but then I know in this context, maybe I wait a little bit to touch, or maybe I like to be touched, but they don't touch me. Like we were saying yesterday. So there are 2 concepts, then maybe we can put some link in the chat. And this is also what she was saying. So of course, we're all human, but then culture is also something that we have learned. And so it's also reflected in our personality. It also was like some studies show that, of course, personality is yours, individual personality, but it's also affected by your culture, the way you have been educated. Why? And I was talking to a friend of mine. She is one of the very high-level manager in Delta, the airline company in the US. And he was like, and if you see him and you talk to him, you never think he's a D personality type, in the DISC model, like a leader, but he's actually is a D. And of course, in the US, you have more D personality type because we're all the dominant, like this model is the D is more the leader attitude, while others is more intuition or cooperation. So the US culture, if you work or you're familiar, for all their education, it's like you have to be the best, you have to succeed, and so of course you develop also some traits of your personality that are more dominant, more than being a good team player. Maybe you're also a good team player, but of course your culture, your education have pushed you in a certain direction. And you can skip. This is about like, so culture is also about like preferences and familiarity. So this is also, again, your awareness in your product, in your service. If this is what my clients want, or is more my preference. And if it is my preference, it can be fine, but this can be any way I can adjust it to also my client's culture, my client's needs. And also familiarity. And again, here is about the awareness, because sometimes, like, we are in an international setting here, but if you are in a more homogeneous setting, you are with people that sometimes they don't even realize that they have a culture. They think that culture is something that others have, like we don't have. But then you have, but it's like the fish, like you're just swimming in your own water and you don't realize that you are in the water and this is actually your water, and you are in the Atlantic Ocean that is different than the Pacific Ocean and different than the Mediterranean. So culture, I think I'm also going to skip this, but something we use, and it's very important also for you to reflect. You also have seen the iceberg in other example in this session, but the cultural iceberg is in every culture, and I would say in you, there's something visible. People easily can say the language you speak, how you dress, your accent, maybe the food you eat, but then there's something that's more about the values. It is more where also things can become difficult because you don't want to compromise on the values. You don't want to adjust. So it's not about the Hawaiian pizza in itself. It's not about the pineapple on the pizza. It's more about, oh, but I'm losing my Italian identity if I'm eating this Hawaiian pizza. So it's more also about something that's going deeper. And just to tell you something, I think this is also an interesting story. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but sometimes stories are good to tell and they give you something to think about. So it seems that the cultural iceberg, and of course the metaphor is about the Titanic. Here we have other intercultural trainers, so you can correct me or maybe you will correct me later. But they use the Titanic because when the study, the field started, it was more to prepare US diplomats to work internationally. And it was a Cold War, so Russia already it was more diverse in terms of culture. The Soviet Union was more diverse, with different languages, different ethnic groups inside the Soviet Union. And so it seemed that the Russian diplomats, or let's say the Soviet diplomats, were already more knowledgeable of different languages and different cultures. And the Americans were like, oh, we need to be prepared. And so they started the field and they started training people in culture and languages. But of course, culture and languages were seen a negative way. Like, we need to know the cultural languages, otherwise like issues and problems and a collision and a clash can come out of this encounter across culture. So it will be, if we don't know the culture, like the Titanic will happen. Now we're moving to a more positive way. And so now we don't have only the cultural iceberg anymore, but we have more positive metaphors like the cultural tree, where there are the differences, but we can bring connections. So it's not only that we need to know the different cultures because bad things can happen, but we just need to know the other cultures because also beautiful things can happen. We can all, let's say, thrive together, flourish together, and beautiful forests together. Just nice story about the film. Let me see how much I have left. Okay. So cultural diversity is actually a lot about the value system. So your beliefs, your values, but then of course are reflecting on the norms. And it is invisible. Something is visible, something is invisible. And then also something that for me is extremely important when I'm doing this job in a setting like this, international. On the other side, what people doesn't recognize is that, again, we have kind of a privilege of knowing and recognize our culture and the cultural influences that we have. So you can also choose, as someone said before, I can choose I feel Italian, but I know I'm also incorporating in my lifestyle, in my way of thinking, my way of portraying myself, I incorporate elements of other cultures, can be national cultures, can be just subcultures, but there are people that they don't have a choice because they don't have maybe the education that we have, they don't have the international experiences. So say that someone from a village in Nepal that just relocate to a village in Malta has this cultural diversity inside themselves, or that is not true, and they cannot even choose because what they know is the culture of this village in Nepal and the culture of this village here in Malta. Now, it's true that now we think that with TikTok and all the social media, people is exposed to cultural diversity. But again, it's need a lot of also awareness and education and self-reflection and self-awareness to be able to see yourself as this, again, bricolage, I would say, or patchwork of values and culture. And we had a very interesting conversation. I was teaching to some students that were starting their to become nurses here in Malta. And so they were just relocated from this really small village in India to Malta. And then I had other students that have been in Malta for many years, so they were Maltese. And we talk about marriages. And the Indian students were like that they're gonna have arranged marriage, because who better than your parents know what's best for you? And all the other students were shocked, but they were like, but I know myself and I know who I want. And so we had this very interesting conversation about actually the cultural norms. But then can you disagree that your parents love you and maybe they want the best for you? Maybe in some cases, but in most of the cases, you think your parents love you and they want the best for you. So why arranged marriage should be something that you should disagree? And so, but sometimes you don't have alternatives. This is, let's say, the only reality that you're seeing. And so you buy that reality because you cannot choose something different. So just reflect also on the privilege that we have of not only being abroad, but also have maybe education or experiences that make us able to kind of choose and pick what's best for us. Okay, we don't have time to talk about this because I want to do this that specifically I want you to think about here about your product and service. So how culture influence the design of product and services. So I think some question that also you have to ask yourself. I'm starting my business for a local audience or a global audience. And this is already something, and then we also know that if you're doing something local in Malta, it's already multicultural anyway. But also maybe you can decide that in Malta, you go even more specific and you offer service only to the Italian community. So also how you select your audience and how you select your customers or your clients. And then also what the goals of your product or your service, like technical feasibility, what do you need and what you can get, and also what also your customers are expecting from the technical aspects in one country or culture or in another one, and other also design considerations. And now I'm going to explain myself even better. So how culture influence the design of a product or a service is, for example, aesthetics. And you mentioned something before also about the clothes or the colors or the styles. So yesterday, Iliana said something about also the truth of the colors, like the blue, the calm. But also, they're still also very true that in some countries, some colors are associated to wedding, some colors are associated with passion and love, some colors are associated to death. So, and it's not only you because you have a small business, but even big companies, they made mistakes because maybe they picked the wrong color for that campaign in that specific country. Or on the other side, they made a study, was like, okay, the best color in this country for this time, for this segment of my clients, this is the best. And this is the difference. And you can tell me if it's true or not, but it seems that Germans, they prefer the design of the cars on the left, so more strong lines compared to France, who prefer a more, say, smooth and soft design of cars. No, I didn't say the Austrian, exactly, because exactly.
I also believe that the Germans would prefer the right one.
The right one?
Yeah, I think the left one is more for the Southern Europe, like here, or Dubai.
Yeah, this is why it's also good to have a local also market research and market to really understand what's because we can have our idea, we can have our preferences. I actually prefer the one on the left, but it's maybe just me.
Yeah, me too. And I also thought like the color red, it's actually, I guess, would go more to Italians, right? Because it's red.
The Alfa and the
Yeah,
Ferrari.
like that, I think that.
When I was going to
Good.
But also, like, just comes to my mind all the debate lately from the US about like import, export, and so on. How, for example, we would not be able to buy American cars because they're on average bigger than European cars, and they wouldn't literally fit on our roads or on parking spots. So sometimes it really has practical implications, I would say, on who you could sell to.
Exactly. Yeah. And this brings us exactly to okay, let's go to this one. Again, can be still true, cannot. This is like a table. You can take a picture, can still have something worthy or not. The suggestion is always to hire a local agency, ask the locals, have some local expert that can guide you also in the choice of like the colors, especially for like a specific product that you want to sell. But it's still true, for example, that white is death in China, while red is everything about joy, happiness, celebration, and life. If you think about Chinese New Year, well, of course, in like Italy, for example, white is the color you use for still most of the time for weddings. And these are some, for example, adjustment that Red Bull did. So for China, they did their study and they found out that like yellow was the best color. And in Saudi Arabia, but that was specifically for Saudi Arabia National Day, they used green because green is the color of Islam. And so on one side, they could also, they were very careful of not using in a way that could be offensive, but then it turned out actually to be very appreciated, the choose of color green, for example, in this case for Kit Kat, compared to like red, for example.
Is it successful in China?
It seems it was.
That's smart as well.
Yeah. And then the second point is actually the one that Flavia said. So it's about also functionality. So not only aesthetic, but also functionality. And it can be about the size of the car. There is a mistake. Or the car is of left or right. If you drive on the left or on the right, like in Malta, for example, they drive on the right. So they also need some specific cars. The same is in Japan. In Mongolia is interesting because they actually drive on the left side, but they import a lot of cars from Japan. So you have a mix of cars and everyone has to pay attention how they drive, where they drive. This is also, let's say, another choice. And then I would just want to mention this concept that is very interesting. It's a Japanese concept, that it was about intentionally impractical inventions designed to address everyday problems, balance between practicality and cultural perception as usefulness. And it's interesting because they had an entire like reports, and they started I think in 95 with this like collecting like useless Japanese invention. And one of these, and I'm telling you this because sometimes you have an idea now and it's not working today, but keep that idea and maybe one day it will work. And this is, I don't think there is the animation anymore. Oh, yeah. So, but one of the idea that was actually before considered among the useless invention was a selfie stick. Because when the selfie stick was invented, there were actually not a lot of like smartphone or iPhone. And so it was very difficult, like the camera was heavy, it was not very practical. But then it became like, I think 2010 or something, because one of the best invention of the 21st century. So it was the same invention, but it was like useless when it was invented. And that became one of the best selling products, I think very, very recently. So you never know. So keep there also your idea, and maybe they are not so useless, especially if they solve a practical problems or practical problems. This is something more about marketing, and I know like Birgit was smiling because it's like the famous example in the intercultural field. How the Walkman, or when the Walkman was invented, this idea more in the in East Asia of I can listen to my music without disturbing the others around me, because the people around me are more important than me, or my role is to preserve the harmony and protect the harmony around me. But when the same product went to the US, this is the story, the ad and the promotion was, I can finally listen to my music without being disturbed by the others because everything is about me, me, me. So the product is the same, but how you sell it is different. Yeah, that seems that was the marketing. And then I use the mask here because I thought a lot about this, and I think the mask in some specific country, and this is a lot about individualism and collectivism, that is one of the cultural dimension. And the mask was traumatic for some people wearing the mask, not only for a behavioral change of wearing the mask, but because we were requesting to wear the mask during COVID, not to protect ourselves, but to protect the others. So it was more a change in our value that was being less individualistic and more collectivistic. And probably like me, you've heard a lot of people, oh, I'm young, I'm strong, I don't care being sick, for sure, like I will survive, but it's not about you, it's all about the others. Well, again, on the Eastern Asian culture, we have seen people coming with the mask even before because they were sick and they want to protect the others on their cruise ship or on their group. So it's easy for them to think more about in terms of collectivism than individualism. And then something also that I like, and there are other cultural dimensions. I know there are some experts here, but I also like to use this one because, again,
Is it dirt or diamonds?
this is diamonds. But first, anyone who can tell me, it's not Trump, anyone who can tell me who is the man in the left, riding his bicycle? The King of the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Yes, the King of the Netherlands going around with his bicycle, with his wife, the bodyguard, and the kids. And can you tell me in which country we can find the
Dubai?
Yeah, exactly. Saudi Arabia. So here is not about the product. It's also in some of my training, we're like, oh, but the other is not sustainable. He is sustainable. It's not really about sustainability. It's not really about the cost, but it's also is again about the values and how people want.
They got tired of.
Okay, I think I'm not gonna hear this. I didn't hear this. But it's also about power and authority. It would be extremely awkward for the people in the Netherlands to see the king going around with this golden and diamond car. And maybe at the same time, it would be awkward for the people in Saudi Arabia to see the king or the prince going around with his bicycle. They have bicycle teams. They buy teams, entire team for like bike race, but they don't go. And so also here, you have to be strategic in the way you think about your product and your service. It's like, if this will be something familiar for this place, it is something that people will buy, it will be something extremely awkward. And again, you can sell something extremely awkward, but you have to convince your audience, your customers, that this is also something that they can get and use. But even in Malta, I don't do now the example of Saudi Arabia, but even in Malta, like, unfortunately, you cannot go around with your bicycle. So they have their bicycle and they go to Sicily to buy, but that's you risk your life. So this is also where the functionality is coming to place, and what's actually that market is more the expectation and the familiarity of that market. What you have to consider is also about the user experience. So, for example, in this place, there is like water scarcity, resistant to innovation technology. They don't have familiarity. This is again the case of the electric toilet. What's your user experience? And again, you can put in our work as intercultural trainer, we put a lot of effort in educating our audience that they need our service, because it's kind of a luxury service. So they have other priorities, they think, and then they come to the intercultural training. So there is a lot that we have to do to educate our audience. And we know, and we put a lot of effort to educate our audience. But in some other cases, maybe you don't want to educate your audience. And so maybe you want to satisfy your audience and you want to adjust and adapt more because you want to easily sell your product. And so, okay, I put ketchup on the pizza. I don't care. It's important for me to sell this pizza. And I don't care. You want that, you will get that. In our case, we need to educate. And I don't want to change and do some like leadership training or other kind of training. I want to do intercultural training. And so I have to educate my HR managers or my potential clients. About user experience, also here some mistake that also big companies did. You know, maybe a few years ago, there was this campaign of Coca-Cola of the name. So what they did in Israel, they mainly use Hebrew names. So they kind of forgot all the Arabic names. And so there was a lot of backlash against Coca-Cola because of the selection of name in Israel. And this is, again, how you study your market and how then you want to reach your market. And then in that case was not good for them, the choose of names, for example, that they did.
Flavor is different from country to country. It's much more sweet if you're going to Greece or to the Middle East. And in Europe,
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Okay. Once again,
Thank you.
also the flavor is different. The Coca-Cola flavor is different. If you can compare, for example, the Middle Eastern flavor, which is much more sweet, with the Middle European flavor, or even in Greece, it's much more sweet than in Middle Europe.
Yeah.
Could you hear me now?
Did you hear, Kathy?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I heard it. Thank you so much. If I may actually add some examples.
Oh, yes.
Because from my perspective, what I heard and what I experienced is that there was a company expanding to Brazil, and they thought, oh, great, we are already present in Portugal, so we can just use the same language and the same stuff. And they spent a lot of money on marketing, and then it turned out that they kind of ruined that budget and nearly went bankrupt because the Brazilian Portuguese is not the same Portuguese as the European. That was one example of how important it is to realize cultural differences, including language. Then something else, for example, with numbers. In some cultures, in some countries, some specific numbers means bad luck, and you should never use that or recommend it. And again, in terms of some words, not sure if you heard about it, for that Microsoft. Do you know, if you remembered, after Microsoft 8, that was Microsoft 10. The reason why is because in Germany, 9 means no. And like little things like this, and I think we can combine probably intercultural beliefs also with ethics and meaning of words and languages. I think that it's extremely complex. So ladies, hard job and well done.
Thank you. Yeah. And about the Coca-Cola, there is a famous Mexican writer. It's called Paco Ignacio Taibo II. I don't know if you have heard. He said he is always write at night, and so he drink a lot of Coca-Cola to write, and he tried the Coca-Cola of all the different countries, and he has a list of this is sweeter, this is less, this is with all, it's different, but this is a positive thing because the idea is, like before, you say McDonald's tastier in Russia. It can be, it also means that it's more close to your taste and your preferences, and this is exactly what also McDonald's did. I have an example also after, like in India, especially in specific regions where they don't eat meat because of the cow, they don't have meat in the menu, they only have chicken. And so, and the same other companies. This is the famous ads from Dolce & Gabbana. That was actually, again, their failure in then they caused them to be very difficult, open a boutique in China because China felt this very offensive. There was a model like eating a pizza with chopstick, and then she was all like dirty with the pizza. The Chinese didn't appreciate, but that was not a big issue. It was also that Dolce & Gabbana didn't apologize for what they did, and it became a big deal. They found it was offensive toward like this idea that Chinese don't know how to eat pizza, and so they eat it with chopstick, and then they dirt themselves with that.
They use chopsticks for everything.
It was a kind of way of making fun of the Chinese by the Italians. This is how it was perceived by the Chinese market. And so the Chinese market didn't appreciate. Okay. These are perceptions. But then it's a video, it's not just an ad. So maybe if you see the video, you know that it really didn't came out. In any case, it doesn't matter our preferences. It was not received well, and they didn't apologize.
She's wearing motion.
It probably should.
They could also look like, like I'm using this is really powerful tool, like chopsticks, like for everything, for pizza, for noodles, but
but this is how it didn't came out in that way.
Perception.
Yeah, and again, sometimes if your audience has to think too much and think what you think, your message is not going through. Think about yesterday. It's not about your message. It's about how it is understood. So it has to be understood in a way that's positive for them and effective for them. And in any case, if someone call you out for a mistake and something that was offensive and culturally, you apologize. Then you think about how you can maybe solve it. You also think about, of course, your values. Maybe there's something that you cannot compromise. But in that case, it was more the arrogance of the made in Italy. And just because something is made in Italy, we don't care, we think we can sell. And there is still this arrogance in the Italian, let's say, market about, oh, just because it's made in Italy, we don't have to make an effort to sell or to adjust to the other culture. But the world is so competitive now that actually you have to make an effort. It's not enough to the made in
Italy. There was a game, I don't know the name of the player, Cristiano Ronaldo. There was a Coca-Cola and water, and he removed Coca-Cola and he said, no. And then what Coca-Cola did to increase, to get better marketing out of that, they started selling Coca-Cola with small bottle, like next to Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
They appreciate.
That was a real video, or it was a commercial?
Real. And after the Coca-Cola shares dropped down. Yeah. This thing has an effect. But then it's also, I think it's Burger King and McDonald's that do this campaign, like I burn your store, you burn my store. So, but then it's a funny way for them, and then they get clients also out of all this campaign. Or Ryanair, that every day they make a joke about, if you get the 11th seat, you get. Some people can appreciate, for others is not really their target. So let's go on. So we close on time. What about language? Language, for what Kat was saying, so it's about the words, but it's also, do you read from right to left or left to right? Do you read vertical, horizontal? What's your preference in terms of language? Because also that, again, if you are targeting a specific market, this is also something you have to think about. Or also which kind of Arabic you're going to use. Like, is it standard Arabic, the Al Jazeera Arabic? Is the Arabic is more the dialect of this specific place? So they're all things that you have to reflect on for your business. And I put this funny because when people said, oh, there are no cultural differences, do you know how the dog, what the sound of the dog? The sound of the dog is also different in all the different countries. In Italian is bow bow. So if even the animals, they don't have the same sound, how people can have really the same language and values and culture. Yeah. And then also we talked yesterday a little bit, but also the use of emoji is also something you want to think about, you want to reflect. There are some emojis that maybe can be.
Most of them I have no clue what they are.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's the one I like.
It can be also generational things. I have sometimes they text something I like, what this is like, it's just a hug. I was like, it doesn't look like a hug. I use another one. So sometimes you have to educate yourself. Okay, pray, thank you, high five.
It's funny for me. It's thank you because they do thank you.
Funny one for me is the thumbs up, because younger people use thumbs up as super sarcastic, okay, good, and all the parents is good job, it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And my mother sent the piece of poop emoji, and they thought it's a chocolate cake.
Okay. Yeah, there can be also issue with emoji. I don't know if you heard. She said that maybe someone sent the poo, thinking it's a cake, because they cannot really see the truth. So yeah, emoji is also something you want to think about and consider in your relationship with the client, with partners, especially if you're working across cultures. And then the last point I want to close with today is also about sustainability. So our culture, again, is also the preferences of your clients and your market, and it's also yours, but maybe you want to put more emphasis on sustainability because your market really is so into this sustainability stuff. And so even if your service has nothing to do with sustainability, again, you think strategically and maybe you add something that can give this sustainability component. Corporate social responsibility is also something companies can use some services or can make some choice, can invest some funds related to corporate social responsibility. and then diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these are a couple of examples. I think the first one is from Thailand, where it's kind of normal, so it's nothing to do with sustainability, but then in another market can become something, again, strategically and sustainable, and you use a banana leaf as plates, and do everything, in these cases, everything is sustainable, and everything is, like, let's say, from nature and raw materials. And on the other, this is a recent campaign from Dove, the soap company, and clean product company. And it's about emoticons and introducing new emoticons related to African and Black hair. The idea is that in some places, unfortunately, some hairstyles, especially of like African Americans and African descendants, they're not considered professionals. So the idea is the more we see them, the more we'll become familiar with it, and we don't have any issue with that in thinking that they are or not, they're not professional.
So
yes, yeah, this is the campaign of Dove, like the soap and the shampoo, and they've been doing this campaign in the past few months with this idea of we want more emoji related also to African hairstyles. Mm-hmm. Yes.
For the Thailand, because I just this year I have been there for a month and a half, and I guess for them it also should be on the banana leaf in a way that it should be used as an environment topic, and they should do it because they actually use so much plastic. And oh my God, it's everywhere. Like everything you get in the plastic. And it's like, yeah. So when you said that it's banana leaf in Thailand, maybe in some restaurants, really fancy one, yes, but usually it's plastic. So maybe they could switch.
When you speak about corporate social responsibility, what do you refer to?
So it's really also here depends on like the companies and the country. For Malta, this was a big deal a few years ago, especially where companies invest in corporate social responsibility, and then means that they maybe, for example, they support hospitals or they support specific projects. And so you can also try to add your service as part of their corporate social responsibility service for employees. In a way, like mental health, mental well-being can be part of also their corporate social responsibility. Some work that they do with the community, and so again, they involve not for the company, but for what they do with the community, because and also in this case, they're diversifying, because before was really like we just give money to the hospitals, and that's fine, and then they can get something out of the taxes because they do these donations. But then it became something more that they think about more, and they want to do something that combine also like all the cleanup are also corporate social responsibilities, like giving back to the community, doing something for the environment. And so this is also something that, look into that in a strategic way, where how I can put my service in a way that can also maybe satisfy some of their social responsibility services.
Support kids,
exactly.
So healthcare.
Yeah.
Just say something regarding this campaign for hair, because I think it's really good, because people are afraid actually of the things which they don't know and they are not seeing. So like the more they, like you said, the more they see, they will appreciate more and will be part of their experience and they will accept. So I think it's really
there are
good.
more smileys missing already.
With all the different expressions.
That's another campaign.
That's another campaign.
And don't forget the
That's another campaign too.
They say that people more
So
sexual expression. So then we need
There's
to
another-
admit our doctors to verify the age.
Those people need imagination.
Sorry, maybe you want to explain that also for the people online. What is that about?
Sexual emojis. Like we all know that some of the already existing fruits and whatever represent different body parts and different sexual actions in some manners. However, there are still missing like a bit more exact and more expressive emojis for sexual terms. And I've heard that WhatsApp, for example, working on implementing more emojis which can express more sexual. And it's not just for straight people, but also for the LGBT community.
Too many emotions. It's so difficult to choose.
Then you can make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Then you for sure will make a mistake.
I just come up with like I just remembered, and I loved it so much. I saw it in Klagenfurt, and it's also in all Austria. I guess we have the brand Palmers. It's underwear for women and also for men, but mostly for women. And they started a campaign where they had a sexy lingerie on the old woman. When I saw it, I loved it so much because it's so inclusive. Because usually you have the model, she's perfect and everything, and they started a campaign where you have the older like grandma, and then also like more fat lady and everything. And they said you are sexy no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still okay, irrespective of the age. Exactly, and I loved it so much. Did you see it? This advertisement in Palmer's. I think it's so great. Like what they did to me. Like I already like the brand. Now I even like it more because of that.
Wow. And on the other side, this actually was what Victoria's Secret didn't do right at the beginning when they had a lot of backlash for that, and they were like, "No, we don't change," and then they changed. It was too late. See, they are in the market, but they have difficult years. Let me close on this, and then we go for lunch. Something again, we need probably other 4 hours to talk about cultural authenticity, cultural appropriation, and cultural appreciation. But this is also something is a very hot topic at the moment. So think about when you want to use something from another culture, how you can use it. If you really need to use it, how can you use it in a way that's respectful? Maybe ask someone from that culture. In this case, the first one was Adele. Then she received some negative comments because of how she was like, what she was dressing, like the Jamaican flag, and also like the braids. The second one is Victoria's Secret, mocking. The idea was like the Native Americans. The third one was another fashion company.
That's like
because of
that's
the
like
Native
a
Americans.
tradition thing, and it's like only the chefs can wear it for super special occasions, and then they're just wearing it like a cup.
Yeah, but
that's the middle.
Yeah, and the idea, especially in the last few years, is like you're making money out of something that one for us can be sacred, but second one, we're actually still discriminating in this country, and also because of our tradition. And so, first of all, maybe like make a little bit of equality and equity, and then also we don't get anything out of your use of our sacred stuff, and you're making a lot of money. So it's a lot about like these inequalities and exclusion of people. This is the inclusive leadership of before. Yeah, exactly. Dreadlocks or
but also the dresses.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
In UAE, you're not allowed to use the font.
Mm-hmm.
The font word, it's because it's their national word.
And I just want to close on this. What I think are actually, if you still have 5 minutes, I know we're kind of a little bit over time. These are a few examples that I think are cultural mediation. So where a company actually, it was like McDonald's before we said, or Coca-Cola that adjust to the taste. But the cultural mediation is also like Starbucks in Italy, for example, was a big deal. Like Italians didn't want Starbucks, like we have our espresso, our coffee tradition. So I think what Starbucks did was very smart. They opened one coffee shop in Milan, and this is how it looks like. It's completely different from the traditional Starbucks that you see. It's like a brewery, it's more fancy, it's in the center. And then my idea is also, and it's not only my idea, is not only for Italians, it's actually for international Americans, everyone going to Milan. It's the same thing that they did in Malta. The first that they opened was actually at the waterfront, because it was not for Maltese. It was for everyone coming to the cruise ship and wanted a place that it could be, say, for everyone who's more international. Then there was Costa here, there was other issue, but the first one that Starbucks opened was not in any village, it was at the waterfront. And two, because like cruise ship come here, Valletta waterfront, yes. IKEA, very minimalist, very traditional. It's very difficult for IKEA also to penetrate the Indian market and the Middle East because it's more rich there is a lot going on in the Middle East and Indian design. And so they have this campaign, the name is up, it's Spartan, if I'm not mistaken, where they mix IKEA minimalist style with Indian design, Spartan collection. Oh, sorry. The other is what we just said, like McDonald's adjusting to the different market. The same is for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kentucky Fried Chicken even more than McDonald's. Facebook. This is Facebook in Hebrew. You see, is on the other on the other side for us because the language was the same in Arabic. So everything is from right to left. It's not from left to right.
We're like on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, we are on the other side of the screen, but actually this is how it is for them.
I once tried to copy and paste something from the Arabic website. It was in English, but when you copy paste it, it goes back the other way. Like you have to actually change the words.
And then Netflix also did a great example. A book that I recommend is No Rules Rules. That is from Erin Meyer, who is an intercultural trainer, and Reed Hastings, that is the CEO of Netflix, because they really talk about like all the history of Netflix, like the story of Netflix, how they became, but especially how they moved from being a very American company with a strong American culture toward becoming an international player with understanding the cultural nuances, also of their employees, because at the beginning they were like, this is our culture, we do the same culture with the employees in all the different countries, but then they realized, actually no, like in Singapore, they don't act the same as in the US, and they don't act the same as in India, and so they adjust with the employees, and then of course they adjust with all their local offer. Localization beyond translation, invest in local, specific local content, and also continuous learning adaptation. And here, maybe you know more than me, but La Casa de Papel, for example, was one example, like a very successful case study, and like one example, like project that the Netflix had that became an international success, even if it was very, let's say, local.
You've never seen it? You must watch it. It's amazing.
It was about the Casa de Papel. La Casa de Papel.
I can't remember the English translation, but yeah, it was.
Yeah,
you mean everything?
It's about what?
I've never seen it, but
What's the deal?
What's the idea?
That they stayed in Spain. They're robbing from the central bank.
So the standard.
Yeah, but they were in Spanish. I forgot.
They were
This is what it is. So Tyson and Nabino, the 30 languages. Careful translate. Sorry, this is the other case studies. That is actually what is the it's up there. What's the name? Squid Game.
Squid Game.
The subtitle and dubbing over 30 languages. Careful translation of the Korean cultural references. Preserving the Korean identity while making the theme universally accessible. So, and this is something they're doing quite well because the Papel and this one, there is this also cultural aspect of the Spanish culture and the Korean culture, and they're really able to make the themes universally accessible for what we said before, like topics, and feelings, emotions. They of course invest a lot in the marketing prior to the different cultural contexts. And Squid Games was maybe still the most watched series launch in history. And also there was more interest in the Korean culture after the Squid Game. And that's it. Yeah, we cannot do it. So just to conclude, best practice also for inclusive design, be culturally sensitive. And I always say that for me, culturally sensitive, just the basic, but I wanted to be culturally proficient. So really, ask for help, think a lot about your biases, your awareness, what you're familiar, your preferences, localization, use also local agency, local market, local people, collaborate with local experts, do a respectful storytelling. It doesn't matter your preferences, you have to be respectful. User research, so pilot studies, and then maybe you try something, is not working, then you change it. And then if you want to create a global product, think also about maybe some like local variants of this project, like events, for example. You can have a global format, but maybe you also have to adjust it. Even like the time, we know in Malta, it's better to avoid, and for Maltese, it's better to avoid anything on Sunday because Sunday is family day. It's for family. And so if you have an event, you do it like Friday, Saturday, exactly. But Sunday is still, you don't have events on Sunday. Good. So this is everything that I had for you today. I will probably share more on Miro and on the chat.
Yes, I shared almost everything.
Thank you. Another session. We only have one left. So we'll take 1 hour break and then we're back 2:05.
Yes. Bye bye. Have a good lunch.
Bye bye.